I know what you mean now about needing to start from the beginning. So when you're training a new dog to sit and stay, you have to convince them that it pays off for them to hold that position. And when you have an energetic puppy like you have, it's hard to convince them of that. So you need to reinforce the idea of them just sticking in that position longer. So what you're gonna do, and let me change my camera angle. See if this is better for you. That's better. So I'm gonna demonstrate this with one of my other dogs, Lennox. She is also trained because she's my personal dog. But when you're working with Hartley on this, you're gonna have a lot of treats handy because you're gonna be like rapid firing treats into her mouth. So line her up like you normally would. Ask her to sit, and then instead of don't say anything, so don't say wait or stay yet. Just treat her immediately and then treat her again. So it's a constant stream of food to her mouth. And this will keep her motivated to stay in that position. Free. And then you break the position, start again, sit, good. So immediately, just keep feeding. Good. Free. Because Hartley is so tiny, I strongly recommend that when you work her on this so that there's less space from your hand to her mouth, that you sit on the ground with her. And I'll do that. Just pretend Lennox is 5 pounds instead of 50 pounds. Let's see. So sit on the ground with her. So after she's in a seated position, you just keep treating. Get her into the habit of expecting you to continue to feed her food. Okay, after the dog has remained in a seated position with you rapid firing food in her mouth, you're going to try and experiment and see if you can increase the amount of time in between treat delivery. It's a terrible metaphor. I'm from the north. I'm a liberal Democrat, so I'm not like super into guns. But it's kind of like the difference between, like when we're first doing this, it's like a semi-automatic or an automatic rifle going bam, 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 bam with the treats, right? Bam, 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 bam. So as the dog gets better, you're going to experiment to see if there can be more time in between rounds firing. So instead of bam, 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 it's bam, bam, bam. And it's in that time that you're giving where you're really testing to see if Hartley understands that she's supposed to hold that position. All right. So for example, I'm going to start to not be bam, 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 and I'm going to go bam, bam, bam. All right. So I ask her to sit, and then here I like to introduce the hand signal or the verbal command. So you can say wait, bam, pause, bam, pause, bam, free. So if Hartley sat still that whole time with that lower rate of reinforcement, then you continue to try and just build that gap in time. The amount of time in between me firing rounds is the length of time that she is sitting and staying. So that's the duration that she's starting to build. When you can wait like 2 seconds in between your firing rounds, then you're where most people start at, like the videos that I sent you earlier. So then you just go into saying sit, wait, 1, 2, yes, treat, and you just keep building from there. The harder part for you and Hartley, and this is very common with people that own very small dogs, is that the way when you're training them on the floor like this, the way that you look when you're sitting like this versus standing up taller is going to be so much different. So it might throw the dog for a curveball. So after you've practiced sitting down and doing this with your dog, try doing it standing up. And I recommend that when you do it in a standing position, that you increase that rate of reinforcement again. So in other words, pretend that, I've been on the ground with Hartley and I've gotten her up to a 2-second sit stay. when I stand back up, a position that's easier for me, but learning wise harder for the dog because she hasn't done this watching me stand up, I'm going to go back to a higher rate of reinforcement and not expect her to perform as well as she did when I was on the ground. I hope she does, but I'm not going to expect it. And if she does not do well with me standing up, that means I might have to go back and do a couple reps with me on the ground again. Instead of sitting down all the way on the ground, I might try and stand up taller, somewhere in the middle between actually being on the ground and being up tall. Because remember, for the dog, come here, Lennox, sitting and waiting to get a treat delivered all the way from the top, she's having to wait the amount of time that it takes for you to deliver that treat. So you want to make sure that Hartley has a good foundation on at least sitting and holding that stay position for a second before you're standing up, because you're a pretty tall person. Sorry. You're a pretty tall person, and she's a pretty small dog. So the amount of time it takes for you to reinforce her is going to be significant enough to where her little fast brain and body goes and goes off to something else. The other problem-solving thing that you can do, and I'm going to reposition my camera yet again because I feel like I'm not getting the best angle. There we go. Another thing that you can do is ask her from a standing position. So I have food in my right hand. Come here, Lennox. Come here. From a standing position, you can bend down to her nose, ask her to sit, and then just keep feeding her. Keep your hand to her mouth. And then you can gradually bring your hand up higher and higher. And then again, it's the same kind of logic. The amount of time that is passing between her eating food out of my hand and not is what's training her to hold that sit position. I hope that made sense. That's a lot of problem solving, and it's really in depth. Whenever you're trying to solve a training problem, try a bunch of different things. So try and think, what can I do to keep this dog in this position longer? And it's probably going to be feeding her straight up at that high rate of reinforcement. I hope I didn't confuse you. If I did, let me know. And I might have to come out there again, or I can try and do it with another video. I don't have a really tiny, fast dog at my house that could simulate Hartley the best as an individual learner. So, yeah. Okay, I hope that helped.